Broadcasts of the City of Neenah Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents via the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues or about these broadcasts by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or by completing the electronic feedback form on the city website, www.neenahgov.org. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.
All right, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Neenah City Council, Common Council for Wednesday, February 21st, 2018. The first item of business is the roll call. Members will answer the clerk when she calls your name and sign in on the roll call machine, please.
Alderman Boyette.
Here.
Bates.
Here.
Hillstrom.
Here.
Lendrum.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Lang.
Here.
Colno.
Here.
Coons.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
There is a quorum present. All members are present. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Alderman Hillstrom.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming. Tonight up here, we also are joined by our Assistant Comptroller, Andy, is here tonight. Welcome, Andy. Mike Easker is gone, so thanks for coming. The item number 2 is Mayor's appointments. We have none tonight. Item number 3 is approval of the council proceedings of February 7th, 2018 regular session. Is there a motion? Okay.
I'll move to approve the council proceedings from February 7th. Approve. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, they'll be ready for the next meeting, but the elections are not done yet, so we're going to wait on that. This will be done at the March 7th. I'm sorry if I would have read on. Item number 4 is a public hearing. The public hearing tonight will be to consider a substantial amendment to the 2017 Community Development Block Grant CDBG program and the annual action plan. That memo is attached. I will open the public hearing. If there's anyone here who would like to speak on the public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant program or the action plan. Is there anyone here who would like to talk on that subject? All right. Last chance. Anyone here who would like to talk during the public hearing on the amendment to the 2017 Community Development Block Grant Fund program? Seeing no one, I will close that public hearing. Item number 5, there is none. Item number 6 is the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for anyone in the community or any citizen to come before the Common Council and speak on any topic that they would like, address the Common Council. And all we ask is that you give your name and your address just for the record so we have it. And also we ask that you limit your time to around 5 minutes. I'm not hard and fast on that rule, but in order, in case there's other people who would like to speak, but 5 minutes is a long time. So is there anyone here tonight who would like to address the council on any topic? Lori, come on up. Welcome.
Rick and Lori Piatter. Rick, you want to come up here too or no? Okay. Rick and Lori Piatter, 206 Lorraine Avenue. Last Thursday, there was a tragic occurrence that happened right in our driveway. This is our little Dito. Here's another picture of little Dito. This is with his summer teeth. Some are there, some are not. This is a picture of both of our dogs. Well behaved, they sit on the end of a tailgate. And this is our little Dito after a pit bull attack. He is dead. He probably had just one chomp, and that was the end of it. The dogs did not have any collars on. They were in our house. They came in when our dog came in from going out in the bathroom. I petted these dogs. These dogs were somebody else's pets. But again, they had no collars on. The animal lover that I am, and I have done this in the past, I try to keep them in the house, contain them, just feed them treats, whatever, call the police. They come, they take them, and they find their rightful owners. The dogs don't have to get even more lost, whatever. The problem is, and we were just talking with Kevin yesterday, and was very informed about how many dogs are in the city. 1,000, 2,000, and only a couple hundred licenses are out there. We need to stop. There was actually two that week, two occurrences that week, last week. This needs to stop before it happens with these breeds of dogs. These breeds of dogs are extremely unpredictable. Your pit bulls, your Rottweilers, and your Mastiffs. And there's other stuff, many, many more breeds, and I have a whole bunch of different breeds in different categories from a whole bunch of different sites over the internet, many, many. There's also a site, it's called pitbullvictimawareness.org. I could not, Kevin had looked up on the internet because I couldn't print out a map. This is TV media sites around the country and Canada. And in 2018 alone, and that was only the middle of February, there's 63 cases just in the country. One child is dead and one adult is dead just from a pit bull. I understand that people with these breeds, these dogs are their pets. These families have children. These pit bulls sit right next to these children. But that one child that died not that long ago, that was the family pet. I understand the love for the dogs, all that. But things like this need to stop before somebody dies, before somebody more gets hurt. What we would like is communication with the vets, because not everybody licensed their dog. The veterinarians, if it is a pit bull, a Rottweiler, and a Mastiff, even a mix of these, those owners of that dog need to have a fenced-in backyard where they cannot get out. They need to be microchipped, and they need to be spayed or neutered. If it is not done, then you may leave the city. That would be somebody else's problem, unfortunately, but it would keep the citizens of Neenah and their rightful pets to be safe and to basically not be dead or hurt. It's just an easy form. The veterinarian calls up the city and says, this dog has got part pit bull in it, part mastiff, part Rottweiler. Those homeowners then are going to be notified, hopefully, from the city, and under an ordinance that I hope gets passed, has to put up a fence. Otherwise, they need to get rid of the dog, or they need to move. This is just happening way too fast. And 2 of them in 1 week, I think is a little extreme where it cannot be not noticed. And with all the other information that I have on pit bulls, and here's one from Manitowoc, a wooden bat. This was from May 2017, right in Manitowoc. People used a wooden bat. They shot the pit bull in the head and one to the abdomen, and that pit bull still lived and still clung on. These animals are vicious. Their jaws do not lock when they bite. The pit bull has to release himself. And they keep holding on, and they keep holding on, and they keep holding on until their victim is dead. So all I'm asking for is just an ordinance to keep these dogs kept in their residences and in their own yards so stuff doesn't happen. If you want the proof, you can't deny the evidence when you have the proof right here. I really don't know what more to say. I just hope it doesn't happen to a child soon. And I hope to hell it doesn't happen to somebody else's little baby. And I hope it doesn't happen to any other person's little fur baby like it happened to ours. And oh, by the way, he was right in our own driveway. And we didn't know it. And I was sitting there thinking about it. These pit bulls came in my house with my big dog. And after the whole fact, and you start thinking, my little dog Dito, our little dog Dito, was in the driveway already dead when I left these pit bulls in our house. Kevin Wilkinson had said that the lady had surrendered the dog to an animal shelter. Hopefully nobody takes that dog. Dogs like that should be put down immediately. But because it was taken to a different city, I can't really do anything about it. It's out of my hands. I just want the protection so everybody is safe before any of this stuff can ever happen with these breeds. It helps the homeowners. It helps their pets from getting lost, from getting in trouble. It helps us, and it helps our pets. I don't really think it would be that hard to put another ordinance in just to have a fenced-in yard for these animals, whether they are full-bred or mixed with any one of these. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Rick, you have anything to add? Okay. Anyone else here like to address the council on any topic they would like? Anyone else? Welcome, Brian.
Brian Dufferding, candidate for Neenah Alderman, District 1, 686 Oak Street. I'd like to address the previous topic. First off, I do greatly apologize for your tragic incident, and that's terrible and absolutely rotten to hear. And I feel very, very sorry. And it's very unfortunate. However, first off, I own 2 pit bulls myself. One of them is half pit bull, half Great Dane. They are absolute sweethearts. And I know for a fact that they're not vicious dogs. In fact, it has been proven recently through the documentary called The Champions. All of the pit bulls that were rescued from Michael Vick's fighting ring have been fully recovered, and some of them have turned into therapy dogs for hospitals. Dogs can easily be trained to be kind and loving dogs. It's not something that is in their instinct automatically to become vicious dogs. They can just as well be trained out of it of being vicious. Now, I understand that they are certainly very strong dogs, which is of course a very valid concern, but that does not automatically mean that they are mean and that they are vicious. Furthermore, studies have shown that every time that we get into breed-specific legislation, what happens is that ones that even have a trace amount of a pit bull breed in them are not adopted, and then they turn into strays. Stray dogs are more likely to actually bite because nobody will actually domesticate them. So it is, as much as the intentions are there, it is a terrible, terrible avenue to take. It will actually make things worse. What we should be doing is training them and being responsible, and we should hold the owner responsible. And that is what the city of Neenah has been doing, and most recently with their new policy in regards to the dog courts that they've had. So I think, as much as it is a valid concern, I do think that we should not even think about breed-specific legislation. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Anyone else here tonight like to address the council on any topic? All right, see no one else. We will close the public forum. Right after that, we have what's called Mayor Council consideration of public forum issues. Is there any comment or question or anything from any council member regarding the discussion we heard? Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have review of dangerous dog situations, and I apologize for your loss, or I'm sorry for your loss. I was going to ask Chief Wilkinson whether or not this pit bull had any previous incidents.
Chief?
Did not. So it's difficult to know them.
Anyone else? I would just add, Rick and Lori came in to see me Friday morning, and you could tell the pain and anguish was very evident. It just happened the night before. I made the chief aware of it, talked to both of them. We've hopefully provided you with the information with regards to the number of dog bites. Did the chief get you that? I think I asked him, and the chief's been trying to get you information as far as how many bites, what kind of dogs, those types of things that we've had in the city of Neenah, how many dangerous dog designations, things like that. So we've also made you a little bit aware of your rights, and I'm sure you can look further, but there's the right to sue the owner of the dog, and if they have homeowners insurance, that homeowners insurance will usually cover it. Many homeowners insurance then actually make them get rid of the dogs if they want homeowners insurance again. Because this is the dog's first bite, as I understand it, Jim, the state legislature, we did a triple damage law, but it does not apply to first bites. Is that correct?
There has to be prior notice of the nature of the dog before prior bite.
So that is an option here. But your request, I think, can be considered by any alderman. My suggestion would be, if you would like to further pursue this, you can either come to a public service and safety meeting, which is a committee of jurisdiction. sent an email to an alderman making a request. We are going to look at some things internally. I have some things that I've been kind of just mulling over for maybe the council to think about. And it's not breed specific at this point, but it's, I can tell you as someone who's knocked on every door in this city, there are 3 times as many dogs or 5 times as many dogs as there are licensed dogs in this city. And maybe we need to get a little bit more aggressive in our enforcement of licensing your dogs. Maybe we need to look at microchipping or requirements for microchipping, or give an incentive on the license. Maybe we can give a discount if someone microchips their dog, which would help us, because we spend an awful lot of time, the CSAs, the officers, at 12 midnight picking up a stray dog with no tags on it and taking it out to the animal shelter. That costs us an hour of our officers' time, takes them off the street, and there's a cost to that. And so these folks that don't license their dogs, if their dog was licensed, if it had the tags on, the officer could take them right back to the house, and it would be over. But if they're not tagged and licensed, there's a lot of officers' time and CSA's time is spent, handling these cases. So we're going to talk more about some different things that possibly we can do to get more people to license their pets. We have Joni now, who is very good with social media. We have the ability to really put an all-out blitz on letting people know, or maybe warning people and saying, you need to get your pet license, and if you don't, we're going to be much more aggressive in enforcement of this, so that people license their pet. I think it's only $7 a year, Jim? Or Andy? $6? That way we make sure that they have their vaccinations, their rabies, and things like that. So it's not expensive, to get your pet licensed, but it's important to get your pet license. So there's going to be some further discussions on that type of thing. The rest of it, I think either a council member, we can talk about this, and this specific case will probably, I'm guessing, may come before us, or may not, as I understand it, and I don't want to get into too many specifics now, but they surrendered the dog to an animal shelter, but now want it back because they're going to euthanize it. Okay, and that's, that's what's going on. So that's what I know about this, and Lori and Rick have been pretty adamant that we need to do something, and we're sorry for your loss, and I can tell how much he meant to you that morning, and it's tough to lose any animal and friend of the family, part of the family. So I'm sure we'll probably have some discussions about this topic. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Thanks for coming. Item number 8 is the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second?
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor of that motion, signify will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion passes 9-0. Item number 9 is the report of standing committees, regular Public Services and Safety Committee meeting of January 9, 2018. Chairperson Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. This is some business that took place a while ago, and we had it on hold. Committee recommends council approve the agreement for professional services from SEH for preliminary design and opinion of probable costs of Millview Drive and Park Carriage Road in the amount of $75,000, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Bates. Second. Seconded by Alderman Hillstrom. Any comments, discussion, questions? Alderman Paulno.
Director Kading, I was hoping that, do you have an estimated timeline or how long it'll take them to, on approval, have this design and back to us for some kind of discussion?
The
goal was to have, excuse me, 30% design completed by the 1st of April. We're getting backed up a little bit here with that, and then move into final or 60% design by August.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you for the question. Anyone else? See, Alderman Stevenson.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike. So, given the nature of some of the discussions we've had recently regarding opportunities on this site, I'm assuming you're comfortable moving forward with 30%. I'm just curious, especially on this project, I'm okay with it, but it's the next item coming up. As to, well, maybe I should wait until then, but are we comfortable that the commission is still wanting to move forward given opportunities that may exist on that site with the road and the parkland or the shoreline?
That question directed to the director?
Yeah.
Okay, come on up then, Mike. Thanks.
I am. As I look at the game plan, there's phase 1, and that's really what I consider like the envelope of the project. That's the outside perimeter, addressing the shoreline, addressing issues facing us with the opening of the Loop the Lake. We're not talking about the activity building yet, but and then also the Millview Drive. So it's kind of addressing that perimeter situation. I think what you're referring to is phase 3, which is that. I mean, I kind of drew out a plan today, or an eyeball. And that's the eyeball of the park, and that's the central facility that if that goes forward with any sort of future idea or thought process regarding what could go there, I believe those are separate but connected issues, so they're all pieces of the puzzle. I've also described it as when you put together a puzzle, you put together the border first, and then you start working your way into the inside, and I would consider that phase 3 is an inside piece that will close out the puzzle.
Yeah, I would just, I guess, ask Chris and Lee from a commission perspective. I'm assuming we're still comfortable moving forward.
Alderman Coons or Alderman Hillstrom like to comment? I'll go first, Chris.
I'll comment. I mean, to me, there seems to be a few questions that confuse me, and that is along this lines. If something happens in the middle, does that throw everything else off? And to me, it doesn't in the least, because there's a conceptual plan that we put together with the concept that there would be some kind of community building or buildings in the middle and all these other things to be in place. That's the design. That's how it was all laid out to happen. So whatever happens in there, that's part of what's conceptually already been put in place. So we're following that, and nothing has happened, and nothing has been even suggested to happen that isn't in line with the conceptual plan that you saw a few days ago, that's been out there for 4 months, that's gone through, different public meetings, and trying to develop that through as much input as possible, because once it's laid out, that's our game plan going forward. And so I think we're trying to take that game plan now and apply it. And this fits perfectly in with that application.
Great, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Alderman Lundrum.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to ask Director Hayes. Sorry, I didn't mean to blindside you there. These almost seem like they should be separated, the Carriage Park Drive and the Millview Drive. But specifically, Millview Drive, as it relates to future unknown development, something that we have never been broached about. Will this initial Millview Drive, this design, and I know you don't know until after you see it, but in your opinion, would this work well? Maybe I should ask you after the design, but would this work well with any possible future development that you can think of? I know it's a reach, especially before you get the design.
Yes. Your description of any possible thing is pretty broad.
Sure.
So I believe it, in the first part of it is we're talking design. Paper is easy to change if we need to adjust, make minor adjustments. Once it's constructed, it's obviously a little more difficult to do that, but I think the design will work fairly well with just about anything that we can envision adjacent to it. The one exception, which becomes really dependent on what we have for development, is where the access actually is. And Jerry could comment better than I could on that, but in terms of moving curb openings, that's relatively easy to do. I mean, there's a cost, but it's relatively easy to do. And again, it goes more to the construction than it does to the actual design. Simply moving a curb opening on a design is pretty easy. Moving it once it's constructed is a little more difficult. But I know Mike has indicated in the past that he and I and Jerry have had quite a bit of discussion on this relative to not only the entryway into the park, but also what happens adjacent to it, and that we're taking that into consideration in this design. And one of the things that we didn't really think about until we got into the conversation was what kind of traffic volume could actually come out of this road, because today it's obviously very, very low. But with development on either side of Millview, and depending what happens in the park, we could see higher volumes. So we've actually looked at that as part of the design to make sure we can handle traffic coming both in and out of there. So to answer, the short answer is still the one I would give, yes.
So you will be working with SEH also on this specifically?
Yep. Well, Mike is the lead. Jerry and I are certainly offering our support and involvement.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, there's a motion and a second to approve the agreement for professional services from SEH for Millview Drive and Park Carriage Road in the amount of $75,000. All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote no, using the roll call machine. That motion passes 9-0.
From the meeting of January 30th, we had another issue that was going to be postponed till tonight. Committee recommends council approve the agreement for professional services from SEH for preliminary design and opinion of probable costs of the activity building and boardwalk in the amount of $49,480, and that action is coming tonight, and I would so move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Being none, all in favor will vote aye. All opposed will vote no, using the roll call machine, please. That motion passes 8 ayes, 1 no.
Moving on to the regular Public Service and Safety Committee meeting of February 13th, and the minutes can be found on the city's website. Committee recommends council adopt final resolution number 2018-05 for installation of curb, gutter, and pavement on Cecil Street from Oak to Congress and Adams Street, Railroad to Church, and I would so move.
Second.
Alderman Bates moves, seconded by Alderman Lundrum, to adopt final resolution number 2018-05. Any discussion on this resolution? Being none, all in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote no, using the roll call machine, please. That motion passes 9-0.
Committee recommends council adopt final resolution number 2018-06 for hot mix asphalt resurfacing construction on Andrew Avenue, Geiger to Main, Richard Avenue, Geiger to Main, Geiger Street, Green Bay to Western, and Whiting Court at Tuller, and I would so move.
Alderman Bates moves. Second. Seconded by Alderman Hillstrom. That the council adopt final resolution number 2018-06. Any discussion or questions on this? Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. We had discussed whether to switch over to concrete on Geiger due to its heavier traffic load. And I know Director Kaiser had given us an email on it. I was just wondering if Director Kaiser wanted to give us an opinion on how he saw when that came in at that number.
Kaiser?
As we discussed at the Board of Public Works, the staff recommendation in recommending the low bid from David Tenner Construction assumed the hot mix asphalt surface for all of the streets included in the contract. The concrete alternate on that contract put us over budget by in the neighborhood of 60,000. And then subsequently I sent to the council the cost for just using concrete on Geiger Street, which again puts us over budget this time by about 32,000. So one of the rationale for comparing the asphalt and the concrete, the life cycle cost analysis, and discussing this with Engineer Eckhart, the initial cost differential between the concrete and the asphalt needs to be within a certain window in order for the concrete alternate to bear out as the lowest overall life cycle cost. In this case, the concrete alternate, the price of it is outside of that window. So that's why we're looking at this from a life cycle standpoint as the hot mix asphalt option having the lowest overall life cycle cost. Both of the pavements, asphalt and concrete, are designed to handle the traffic and the loading that would be present on these streets. So I'm comfortable with either option. From an assessment standpoint, the only twist on this one is that Taft Elementary School is not assessed at the residential rate. It's assessed at a commercial rate. All the other properties fronting, other than St. Mark's, St. Mark's would also be at the commercial rate on Geiger. So their assessment numbers would go up a little bit under the concrete alternate.
Alderman Holno.
Director Kaiser, per your email, I think the over budget is about 33,000.
That's correct.
How many more years, just in layman's terms, do you get with concrete versus asphalt?
Well, with the life cycle cost, what we're looking at is basically a period of time, like 50 years, and looking at what our maintenance and repair needs are on that street over that period of time. So the concrete street does require work. Some people get the impression that concrete is forever. We have to take care of that just like we do any asphalt pavement, keeping track of the joints, patching panels, taking care of the joint repairs as needed. So they do take work also.
How many more years do you get with concrete versus asphalt?
It all depends on the maintenance. It's in keeping up with that maintenance.
There's not a rule of thumb, like 10 more years or 15 more years, and just.
I'd love to give you a good number. We got some concrete pavements in the city that have not held up well after 18 years. I can point to a couple. We've got others that are 40 years, 50 years plus, and look to be doing just fine. So it's in the construction conditions and it's in long-term maintenance that occurred on that section of street.
And probably the underneath, whatever dirt or clay is, probably plays a role.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Was there any, that go into any of the decision as far as like soil samples they take and that kind of?
Well, The other thing we see with streets that don't perform as well is the amount of base that's under that concrete street. And that in conjunction with the soil condition can actually lead to maybe that pavement being under design for what it had to put up with. We have bolstered our pavement design both on the concrete and the asphalt ends. Over the last 15 years or so, we've tweaked them a number of times to make sure that we're handling what we need to handle out there. So the pavement, the soil conditions we address with any undercutting of the soft areas that's needed, so that we can create a firmer base for it. But we don't really take any other measures.
Thank you.
Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. Should Geiger need repaving because of the wear on that street overall? The side streets would not have to be redone again necessarily. This time they're getting it, a lot of it due to the utility work that we need to do underneath.
Yeah, I believe those streets were rated about a 4, so they were right at that window of being ready for a resurface. If we'd left them go much longer, there may have been more substantial work that was needed on those streets.
And Geiger was rated A.
Geiger was a 2, I believe.
And just an explanation, a 2 is worse than a 4.
Yes, yes.
So this time, so as the neighbors were saying to me, is it because of the traffic at the church area that their streets are being done? No, it doesn't have to do with that. And should the Geiger need to be redone, they're okay, perhaps. It's not based on because they're next to Geiger.
No, it's not just based on them being next to Geiger. It's a combination of the pavement condition, and we had water utility issues and certainly sanitary issues out there.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? No, we discussed this at committee. I personally believe because this is a high volume street, because this is a street that's visible from Green Bay Road, and that I personally believe that concrete would be a good alternative for just Geiger Street. Okay, anyone else? Seeing no one, there's a motion and a second. All in favor of that motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion passes 9-0.
Committee recommends council adopt final resolution 2018-07 for installation of sanitary sewer laterals for properties served by sanitary sewers on Cecil Street from Oak to Congress, Andrew Avenue, Geiger to Main, Richard Avenue, Geiger to Main, Adams Street from the railroad to the church, and Geiger Street, and I would so move.
Second.
There's a motion by Alderman Bates, seconded by Alderman Lendrum, to adopt final resolution number 2018-07. Any discussion regarding to sanitary sewers on these streets? All in favor will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine, please. That motion passes 9-0.
Committee recommends council adopt final resolution number 2018-08 for installation of curb, gutter, and pavement on Whispering Pines Lane from Red Wing to Nature Trail, Lone Oak Drive, Nature Trail to north, going north, Pond View Court, Nature Trail Drive from Bluebird to Pond View, Nature Trail Drive from Lone Oak to Kingswood, and Remington Court at Nature Trail. To request that we bid the project to include the streets of Eagle Crest subdivision as an alternate for the construction in 2018 and proceed with the assessment process for streets in Eagle Crest. And I would so move.
Second.
Alderman Bates moves, seconded by Alderman Lendrum. Any discussion? Questions? Alderman Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. As the action that came out of the committee was We had considerable discussion in committee regarding the status of the new construction assessments for nature trails, as it came in at, I think, $118 or $20, versus historic numbers. And I know that's not a great indicator of current numbers, but a number of residents in that area had been communicated to via staff based on historic numbers of around $75. So we had considerable discussion regarding options that the council had available to us, and three major options were discussed, including Eagle Crest in 2018 and avoiding assessments until out years when they would have been assessed for it. Doing the bidding now and not doing the work until 2020, and then simply recognizing an inequity between what residents had been told and what the assessments came in, and with the recognition that the reason for a major reason as to why that increase of over 50% from estimates to a preliminary resolution assessment numbers was contributed by the city and its decisions, our decisions not to move forward with the construction in a manner that we exceeded the length. And in the committee discussion, the city attorney indicated to us that the options that we were discussing were not consistent with city ordinances, and he gave me some reference numbers, chapter 13-5 and chapter 25-130. So I apologize for not getting to that earlier so that I could share my thoughts, but it wasn't until this afternoon at lunch when I grabbed my iPad again and it was working. It was good. So I read section 13-5, and I noted in particular section 13-5, subsection I, number 6. And in there it says under special considerations, subsection I is for special considerations. And 1 is accessible frontage calculations, and 2 under that same section is accessible frontage exceptions. 3 was street maintenance. Number 4 was the effect of federal, state, and county and other cost participation revenue sources. 5 was the effect of tax incremental financing. Number 6 came up, and it was alterations. And in the code, it says this, one simple sentence: if, after the public hearing, inequities are apparent in the strict application of this section, the council may act to correct the inequity. And my desire, and one of my lead options in committee was to say, should we consider recognizing the fact that our preliminary assessment was over 50% higher than any calculation we'd ever had. Some of it was I'm relatively strong that we contributed to that by our decision to delay. So I asked Jim about when I got here today, and I apologize again for not getting that to him earlier so I could have made you all aware of this. But my interpretation of the city code says if we want to lessen the burden on residents of Nature Trail, under section 13-5, subsection I, number 6, we have the authority to do that. So if we want to participate and recognize our role, whether Jerry agrees with that's our role or not, I think we have the ability to do that. I'm not challenging Jerry that he's not agreeing with what I'm saying. So I don't know at this 11th hour and given this new information, what options I have to. Okay, so and let me just go back and say to the mayor's point about, do I want to explain what we did? What we did do was something that we thought we legally could do, and the only thing I thought I could legally do, which was to attempt to soften the blow for Nature Trails and hopefully soften the blow for Eagle Crest, which was due to be done in 2020, and combine the bids and see how those numbers come in, but not restrict our bidding options to say Eagle Crest has to be done at the same time Nature Trail comes in. But if it does, and we can save the residents money in both areas, at least we have the option to do that. So that's what the motion on the floor is right now, is to include Eagle Crest in the bidding process and make a determination. I would, and maybe that's not the worst thing to move forward with. I don't know what options I have to introduce a reference to 13.5 subsection I number 6, which says, if after the public hearing I feel there's an inequity in our process that's causing these residents undue hardship, I would like to exercise, or at least ask the council if we're interested in correcting that inequity. I don't know what.
I'm going to ask Jim to explain to the council if his interpretation would be similar to yours. Is that all right?
Yeah.
We, just briefly before the meeting, President Stevenson and I did discuss that, and it does give the council some options to be able to address inequitable situations. I would stress, though, that in proceeding that we find some objective manner of determining an inequity, and that it be something that could be applied in other parts of the city, that it's not specifically unique to this situation, that we establish some standards for determining what that inequity is, so it's not just a very subjective viewpoint.
It talked about that type of laying that out with soil.
The contribution.
Substandard soil that we contributed to, something like that. So, yeah. Let's get some. Let me just ask this. So, the time frame, Jerry. So we pass. If we pass this tonight, then what happens? What's the time frame?
We would start with a preliminary resolution coming through committee for the Eagle Crest streets next week, and move on through the assessment process for that subdivision. Ultimately, a public hearing. Right now, I've got that penciled in for April 4th at council. We would intend to open bids on the project around April 11th. And come to council on the 17th, which is the organizational meeting night, with the final resolution and contract award.
That's the time frame.
So as a follow-up to that, council has to take action on a final assessment report, correct?
Well, an assessment report for Eagle Crest, that's correct.
I'm asking specifically about nature trails now. And our preliminary assessment shows an assessment rate of $110. 110. Okay, yeah. So it's $110 a running foot. So how long does the council have to invoke its authority to correct the inequity?
That, I think, is going to be a Jim question.
I was going to ask a similar question. Great question.
When the engineer's report comes back through the Public Services Committee, it's really, that would be the ideal time to deal with it. Obviously, with nature trails, we're beyond that point. Certainly, the time to do it would be almost immediately, the same time as the bids are being awarded for the contract, so we know what that amount is. I think that's about the latest you could go, Alderman.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, and I want to understand. Sometimes I challenge Jim on things. I'm not challenging him at all. I want to understand what our options legitimately are to get through this process. And I would agree, and I would say that the council probably can't, to your point from earlier, we probably can't definitively define the inequity until we see what the final numbers are.
And the impact of bidding both projects.
Right, and the potential impact of bidding them both. So here, theoretically, we have a preliminary assessment report Residents have been notified, and Nature Trails for $110. Eagle Crest more than likely will come in less than that, I'm guessing. My guess would be, Jerry, if we bid it combined, my guess is that the combined bid for Eagle Crest and Nature Trails will come in less than $110.
I think you're right.
So,
and we got, if I can just, and we got good news, this week with the bids that were open last week. There were 12 bidders bidding on the project. It was a positive, because we were concerned about having a limited number of bidders. So we got 12. We got some out of the area bids and that. So they came in a little bit slightly under bids.
So is it plausible, and is it defendable, and is it a legitimate action or process recommendation to say, understanding what we have available to us now, interpretation of our own code, that we can bid the project as we have it on the floor right now, and then have a discussion at the time of the bid letting as to how we define, if we define, and I may be the only one that defines it as an inequity, but if I can convince the council that there is an equity, a definable inequity, that we move forward either Nature Trails and Eagle Crest, or maybe just Eagle Crest, I guess. I don't know. I doubt that. And then at that point, we could take a look at those dollars, and if it comes in at 90, and I'm sensitive to the people on Eagle Crest because they haven't been made aware of this. So is that applicable? Is that a plausible process? We addressed this issue from an equity perspective at the time we let the contract.
Yes.
I would strongly recommend, I don't know if I can do that in a motion, or I want the minutes to reflect that I will have a discussion point regarding 13-5 subsection I-6 language from that part of our ordinance when we consider the contracts as they open.
Jerry, when would you just remind me when the bid are supposed to be in on that project?
We're looking at opening April 11th. So Board of Public Works would tentatively see it the following day, April 12th.
And you know offhand when the Public Services Committee meets in that?
They would meet on the 10th.
Okay.
So the day before.
Okay.
Now we haven't advertised this yet. So this is just kind of laying out the schedule with the staff as we think we can meet it. We could do an afternoon bid on the 10th. Or, on the morning bid on the 10th or afternoon bid on the 9th, the Monday.
That would be better.
My thought, just for the council's information, my thought is that if we have the bids in and we can see what the actual linear foot cost is going to be at that point, we could have an agenda item on the Public Services Committee meeting that night to discuss the possible adjustments to that project and take action on that so that it becomes part of the final resolution.
I would suggest that we structure our bid. If Gary, the bid package is defined and not advertised yet, so we can structure it that way. Have the bids due back by 11 o'clock on the 10th.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Great suggestion. All right, a few people have questions. Alderman Coons is first.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to get my arms around this moving target. I wasn't a big fan of the way this was structured, and I don't think I am yet or still. There's a couple things going on here, at least, and again, I'm trying to get my arms around this. It's a geometry issue, and that's where combining Eagle Crest helps that in these intersections and might bring the cost down. My understanding. Am I right on that, Jerry?
You're correct.
Okay. So that's one side of the issue. The other one is the subgrade due to the fact that we haven't redone the road in 10 years, like we said, and it's been set 13 or whatever it might be. And I don't see that we really address that that to me shouldn't be an equation of we bid it out and it came out this much, therefore we want to adjust it this much. It's like, no, here's how much it costs to adjust the subgrade issue. It's an X dollar based on engineering, not anything else. And I think that's fair. I think that's the way it should be done. And we should have an ordinance or update our ordinances to deal with subgrade to degradation due to our timing. If it, as we see that, and I think it's a legitimate issue, and we should address it. I'm not sure we're able to address it in this scenario in the proper way, and I'm a little concerned with taking action as kind of a reaction to things, because every single road we do, everyone's got a story on it. Every single one, we can make adjustments, and we haven't, thankfully. And these haven't become 3-day-long meetings, which they could be, because these are big dollars, big things that we work on. So I want to be very careful about our approach, that it doesn't appear to be reactionary to the point of, if I go in and talk loud enough, that the council will do X. Not that we aren't listening, and not that we don't want to do what's right, but we want to apply that and ensure that we're doing it not just by these people or the road next we do next, but the road we did 5 years ago as well. We need to be fair to all those things. To me, there's again a lot of moving parts, but to me, an idea that, at least in my mind, that makes sense would be to reject this, postpone this, move this whole project to 2019. Everyone will know exactly what's coming up, including people on Eagle Crest. They'll have a complete notice about that, and we'll have an opportunity to update our ordinances through engineering and a thoughtful process and deal with subgrade issues. And to me, that seems to be a more thoughtful piece. The only downside would be from a whole borrowing standpoint, when the money comes and how we borrow it, and it shows up next year. Although, all these dollars are going to be fully assessed. We'll get those through other means. It does affect our borrowing, but I think we can absorb that. That's where I'm at. I'm not going to make any motion at this point or anything quite yet. I wasn't at the Public Service Safety Commission meeting. I did talk with Jerry quite a bit about this after seeing this, and maybe I'm missing something. There's a lot of moving parts. I don't want to react too quickly here, but I'd be more in line to move this and try to adjust and do what's right.
You have a borrowing question we can ask Andy?
Well, I could come up with one.
All right. And with that being said, Alderman Cruz, I just want to say, as we speak, I have Joni, Gary's duty up in Public Works has given me all the addresses that would be affected by Eagle Crest. And so I have Joni working on a postcard, and that I think I'm going to ask the aldermen if they would like to, of that district, and myself, I'm trying to find an appropriate time to have a community neighborhood meeting for them, and invite them to an informal neighborhood meeting, maybe out at the pavilion, out at the George Shirk Pavilion or something, near their neighborhood, to try and get their opinion, and listen to them and see, if there is interest in doing that. So I'm working on that, and I just put that out there, that invite the 3 aldermen whose district it is, or anyone, to be perfectly honest, can come, but those 3 aldermen, if there's interest in doing that and finding out, if we're headed in the right direction, okay? Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to request that the city attorney, when he's looking through this 13.5.I sub 6, the inequity in the application of assessments, whether that is just referring to, in that section is where we define how you assess a pie-shaped lot or a corner lot and things like that, making sure that it's a broader sense than just how we apply those sorts of things. The other thing is, when you mentioned you'd like to see a measurable standard, I think that's a good idea, and we've discussed that, and perhaps putting that the deterioration of the base as being something we could do as a measurable standard. I think that's a good idea. Getting down to the last point I have here is, should we get a better bid for the combined project of Eagle Crest and Nature Trail? Are we going to be able to know whether it's just adding Eagle Crest, the numbers and the fact that their street is better, that's buoying up the other neighborhood? Because I hate to see that until we say we want to fix this base layer up to a particular standard, I don't want to see us burdening one set of neighbors with somebody else's bad road, and it just buoys them all up. But unfortunately, it makes the other group pay more. So that was my question to Jerry. If we have it, are we going to bid it where it's just Eagle Crest alone, and then we find out that we're pulling them together and we're making them pay more, or?
My understanding of the charge is to bid Nature Trail as it is, and then bid the combined project with Nature Trail and Eagle Crest, and not to bid Eagle Crest as an individual project.
Would you be able to see by the amount of, I know you talked about the amount of gravel and things like that, we're going to have to add extra into the bad sections of Nature Trail. Would you be able to tell by that whether or not, if we took some of that out, that would help the numbers for the assessments as well? It will.
Oh, yeah, absolutely it will.
Could you, I mean, is that something you'd be able to say, well, if we were to fix it up to this grade and we have this many tons of, or cubic yards of gravel, we'd be able to bring down the assessment by $2 a.
Yeah, we've run rough numbers on that already. And yes, it would bring it down probably closer to the $90 a front foot range based on the original project design and the original estimate. I just want to let the council know we haven't been standing still on the design and just assuming it's the best thing that's out there. Our staff has been adjusting it to try and minimize those construction impacts to the residents out there so that there is less subgrade repair that's needed, and that we can reduce our costs overall on the project that way too.
So by you doing that, when we see a reduction in putting the two projects together, it's just economy of scale at that point, which is something that everybody in both the subdivisions would appreciate.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bates. I can also tell the council, I've had conversations with a couple of the people in the Eagle Crest area. They contacted me, and anecdotally, just from a couple, said their concern to their contact is that what the cost is going to be in 2 years, and if they, I don't know if you want to use the word subsidize or whatever. I mean, in their opinion, they told me a bird in the hand is better than not knowing what comes later, so that's just two anecdotals that I talked to and said, depending upon what it comes in at, they're just worried that 2 years from now it's going to even be more, and that would be a sticker shock for them. So, that's anecdotally what they told me, and they said if by combining the projects, they both came out better, they would be happy. That's just from two discussions that I've had, and we plan on talking to a lot more. Thanks for your question. Good question. Alderman Paulno.
A couple things. First is a process question. The resolution, or their agenda is 2018-008, has that verbiage about bid the project. Now, does that verbiage have to be in the resolution as posted, Attorney Glutsky? No. Usually, anytime we have a recommendation on a committee, that verbiage is somewhere in the resolution itself, the wording. Because it's not.
No, you're correct. It is not. It can be treated as a separate motion and reflected as a motion in the minutes that we typically do. The cleanest way would be to amend the resolution and include that additional language in the resolution.
If you supported that, correct?
If you supported it, right.
So right now, as it is, we are, I guess, not in phase. The resolution doesn't match what's on the agenda, correct?
Correct. Again, if the motion was to accept the committee's recommendation, which would include both the final resolution plus the additional language there.
But you'd have to amend it.
You'd have to amend it to put it into the but to give effect to the committee's action, it would probably be reflected in the minutes as a separate motion.
It could be.
Yeah.
Okay. So that answers that question. It's really heartening when we start digging into an ordinance, getting wonky with subparagraph 14 and section C. So it's good that we're doing that. But what's problematic to me is the precedent being set here, and we're going outside the norms because we have been described as inequity with the original estimate to today. Well, it was very clear in the committee that the original estimate, there was no written estimate ever penciled to paper. I don't know exactly where we got the 75 per foot, that item that was discussed compared to today. So that doesn't seem like terra firma, like a lot of information we have. So we're using that as a baseline that the folks in this neighborhood are kind of getting the short end of the stick. And then we're reacting as council to that outside our boundaries. Problematic to me. So can we, if the bids come in soon, is this something that could go back to committee for a little bit of, we're up against it now. But Director Kaiser, the bids, they're going to be in, when did you say for this? Or when would they have, it'd probably take at least a couple weeks to vet them?
Yeah, the bids will be beginning of April.
Okay, so if we went, next regular committee is the 27th, correct?
That's correct.
So if we refer this to committee for a little more, we got a lot of information tonight that we didn't have at committee. Well, with the ordinance and the possibilities there, how much would that help or hurt for potential bidding?
From a flow standpoint,
Yes.
getting into the construction side, it's not unusual for us to pass the final resolution the week before we open bids. So I don't really see it as having a detrimental impact that way.
All right. Well,
Jim, am I missing anything that way?
No, in fact, under the law, you can pass the final resolution after the project is completed.
Okay.
I will tell you that the neighborhood, I've received some calls today, they were hoping and expecting that this would pass tonight, so.
Okay.
Because they were then under the assumption, I think that's why they're not here, so there might be this, and any action like that may constitute a bunch of phone calls. So just to let you know.
That's fine. That's what the phones are for. So I guess I'm torn on whether to take out that verbiage as a separate amendment or not. I guess I will do that. I will make a motion to remove the wording bid the project to include the streets in Eagle Crest, and that whole bid the project include the streets in Eagle Crest as an alternative for construction 2018 and proceed with the assessment process for the streets in Eagle Crest. And make that motion.
Okay. Second. There's a motion and a second. Motion by Alderman Palmer, seconded by Alderman Hillstrom. Discussion on the amendment to the motion, Alderman Lundrum.
It's not a discussion, it's not a comment on the amendment, but I see that I lost my opportunity to make my original comment, so.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Surprisingly, I agree with Alderman Coons. I know, shocking. To be very careful to not be reactionary to the people, to the residents who speak the loudest. And I'm referring to people in my district, District 1, and I'm also referring to the motion that I tried to bring up of Alderman Paulno's idea of reducing the financial burden on some of our residents. I didn't even get a second. But here, with these groups of streets, we're spending hours, not only of our time, but staff time, and endless meetings with all involved, including residents. And believe me, just because the residents on the streets in my district that have been assessed sometimes up as high as $4,300, and now we're thinking about adding the lead service for, I don't know, another $1,500. It doesn't mean that they're not objecting. Certain people are not comfortable coming and testifying in front to us. But believe me, it's extremely painful for some of these working class families to get this, as you would call it, a financial burden. So you can wordsmith the word inequity all you want. Just trying to represent the people in my district who, in my opinion, have inequities laid on them because of just plain costs going up. Costs have risen, I don't know what it was, 60% over the last few years. So again, just be aware that how much time we're spending on this. Thank you.
Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. If this amendment is to remove the verbiage of doing the extra bidding, would I then be able to put in a motion to, separate from the resolution, to request we do those separate bids? Is that an appropriate action?
It certainly is within the subject matter of the agenda item.
Right.
In order to get Alderman Hillstrom. Alderman Hillstrom, sorry.
What's the pace of rating on nature trails? What's the speeds there?
Nature trails, we essentially have two different ratings out there. I believe Nature Trail is a 2. Whispering Pines is 2s and 4s, and Lone Oak, I believe, is a 4.
And then what would be the ratings on Remington and Kingswood?
The streets themselves, I'd have to look. I would guess those are in the 4 range, but I can look if you'd like me to.
Okay, and we're talking Geiger as a 2, and yet we delayed that 3 years to work on it. And there's the base on Kingswood and Remington is not having the problems that we're having on nature trails?
We have some areas on Remington just north of Nature Trail that look like they'll also have some needs. But for the most part, we don't see the extent of alligator cracking out there that we've seen on the other parts in the Nature Trails area.
Okay, so they're scheduled in 2 years, but it's possible we could delay that even past 2 years? I mean, if we've delayed Geiger for 3 years, which was much worse 3 years ago than Kingswood or Remington is now.
Let me put it this way. My request will be for at least 2020, if not earlier.
Well, and I can understand going through this. Yeah, I can understand that. I've been on council now 11 years. I can't count how many times I've sat here when we get to the streets and people in the audience are here and they're saying, we wish we'd have known sooner that this was going to happen. We haven't been able to plan for it. We haven't been able to save for it. We didn't know this was coming up. And this council's done things to try to get them information sooner, get it earlier. We send out a postcard now right after budget. So now to sit here in the middle of February and now we're going to send out a postcard to Eagle Crest and say, oh, by the way, we might be sticking your assessment in this year. We know you didn't know anything about it, but, this would help out nature trails. And it's possible it could help out you, but they're going to look at it different ways. Nature trails, $110, you just said, if it wasn't for the subsurface problems, it could have been $90. So they're just going to look at it like, well, we're subsidizing nature trails $10 a foot then. So, I just have a real difficult time including Eagle Crest in this. And, I'll support Bill's motion, but I wouldn't support the original motion on the floor tonight.
Okay, Alderman Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, I think this is the third meeting we discussed the assessment report. We legally bound and required to have the discussion at all three of the meetings that we discussed it at. So that's our job, is to discuss assessments. So I don't know if I would call that endless and challenge that. My colleague out in the 3rd District, Alderperson Hillstrom, we do every year we get comments from people on their status of their knowledge on projects, and I agree wholeheartedly. Some of it, most of it, is naive on their part. They probably knew about it, don't want to have to pay it. But my motivation here isn't anything to support the fact that they have to pay something. It's the fact that this assessment exceeds by 50% any assessment that we have ever given, and nowhere was there any hint that it might be that. So as these residents were calling, and the people I'm talking about are the people that call, not the people who are saying, because there are people who called me and said, I can't afford this, I can't afford this. Well, I'm sorry about that, because it's your road and you have a responsibility to understand what's going on in your neighborhood. So to those people, I'm sorry. But for the people that were responsible, those are the people I'm playing to here. They were responsible, they did call in. They got the numbers, they calculated the numbers, they saved to the numbers, they did, and now we send them this notification. Oh, you know what? Sorry, got some soil problems, $118. And we're sorry, and because we have a person over on the island who's being assessed $4,200, and they can't afford that either. But these are the rules that we are governed by, and I'm aware of them. I discovered them, and I'm trying to live by the rules, Alderperson Pauno, of the rules that we have in our books. This is one of the things that and we all have as a tool in our box to represent those who elect us. So the challenge is to say, well, I don't think we should really be doing that, because even though it's in our ordinance, I can't do it. I couldn't do it the other night because we were told it wasn't an ordinance, but now we find out it is, and that we have the ability to correct inequities. It's my definition. I apologize if I'm overextending my definition of inequities, but I think that's up to each of us to determine whether that's inequity in your own mind to support a yes vote or a no vote. But the real crux of me wanting to speak was started with this comment. What does it hurt to get the numbers on Eagle Crest? Where are we damning people? Where are we hurting people? Where are we being wrong to someone? Let's just see what the numbers are. And we might get the numbers, and the people in Eagle Crest might say, holy hallelujah, let's do it now and not roll the dice in 2 years. Or we might say that. We might say that because that's the responsibility we have to make that determination. What harm is there in getting that? We bid it as, you pass the motion to amend that's on the table right now, and we go back to let's find out what it costs us to get Eagle Nature Trails. All I'm saying is, let's get Eagle Crest numbers too and see if there's any economies of scale. I don't know why we would do that. I'll just stop.
Alderman Pauno.
Well, I'll address that. I always like when we talk about rules, of course. That's just me. I'll answer Alderman Stevenson's question. One aspect I look at is this is definitely setting a precedent that we have not been done before, which is also troublesome because next council could have XYZ street, and we're going to do that for each inequity. That's problematic in the assessment process. And the inequity discussion that we learned about tonight per the ordinance research that Alderman Stevenson done, that's not reflected in this amendment at all, because this amendment, the proposed amendment, remove this verbiage. This is verbiage that came out of committee pre-knowing this other information, which doesn't preclude what Alderman Bates said, having a motion to have this information, because we can ask Director Kaiser to ask for bids at any time and point. Correct me if I'm wrong, Director Kaiser or Attorney Glusky. We want to have a bid put together. We don't have to tie it to the assessment process just for informational purposes, correct?
The bid would be to get hard numbers, and it would not have to be tied to the assessment.
Correct. So that is my point. We could have the information, but not tied to the assessment. This is tying it to the process, to Alderman Hillstrom's point, much later than we've ever done it, and it sets a precedent that I think is problematic for this council. And if we want to address the ordinance, I'd be fully supportive of that to make it more defined and have hard parameters like Attorney Gillespie and Director Kaiser had referenced in committee and tonight, because you want to have a terra firma when you make changes like this, in my opinion. That's why I would support this amendment.
All right, well, we've had a good discussion on this. There is an amendment to the original motion. Alderman Coons?
Thank you, Mayor. Trying to understand two things. First of all, Alderman Powell, now, is the goal to make this motion to move forward with just doing the roads mentioned and not Eagle Crest? Is that outcome you're looking for?
Well, if you're asking me, it's a process thing first, and if we want the information, we can still do it. We don't need to tie it to this assessment.
I just didn't know if this was part of a two-step process. I'm just trying to understand the outcome. So the outcome would be that we would just move ahead with the roads originally planned. Okay. And my problem is this is already very have a moving target. Now we're throwing a couple more layers on this, and so I don't even know what to do here, because I think things need to be changed. I'm not sure this is quite the right change, but trying to put this piece together. First of all, I have a question. I have to go back a second. The $75 a lineal foot, whatever. When did that come? Is that based on last year's numbers? 5 years ago? Where?
Well, Bluebird Court, which was built in 2011, the estimate on that street was $70 a front foot. Final number came in less. Chances are it was in that general time frame that when people called up to the office, it was, this is what we've run into. We had estimated 73 in Castle Oak. I would, depending on who they talk to, there may not have been a clear disclaimer as to, past performance is not indicative of future results, but
So someone called in and got a verbal response from someone from in 2011?
Call, email. We get requests this way, any variety.
But from 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago?
I couldn't tell you specifically when some folks got these numbers.
We seem to be going under the assumption, and what I'm hearing from the mayor in particular, is this kind of fear that we're not sure what's going to happen any given year. We're playing Russian roulette with prices, that next year it could be, I don't think that's the way it works. I know it has not been completely linear, but I assume what happens is prices slowly go up, like my bread and my gasoline and everything else that I purchase. Mm-hmm. Is there some wild card going on here that's making the prices go crazy?
Nothing that I'm aware of. I've provided some information to other council members regarding the Federal Highway Cost Index. Real recent experience there is an increase of about 3 to 4%, but that was, the 6-7 years prior, that was just kind of dancing around kind of a median line for a while as we were going through the rough economy.
So I'm not so worried that we're going to get a price that's going to be 30% higher next year. Doesn't seem to be likely. What more seems to be the issue is, and I guess I would have to ask the mayor, is you're saying people in all these roads want to see this move forward. Does that mean they don't mind paying for the extra soil work? They're okay to pay that because they're afraid they get a higher price next year without it? It doesn't make sense that they'd want to pay a higher price this year instead of a lower price next year.
I only had a couple. I telling you was anecdotal. I would say they are concerned based upon what they see happening in nature trail. So there's some consternation because of what they see price tag for nature trail. That's all I could tell you. And it was just, a couple of people. I mean, this whole thing here is, we all were told that prevailing wage was going to help us price. Remember that? I mean, doesn't seem repeal of prevailing wage doesn't seem to have had much impact on these bids. So I don't know. I think there is some fear about the unknown down the road, and I guess I would just agree with Alderman Stevenson that it does not cost us anything. It doesn't hurt anything to get the bids and see what they are.
And I would agree in part with that, but that it also is moving ahead with the assessment process, which is a different deal. First of all, there's a whole process that goes along with that, and that's then notifying everyone that we are going to do this. Now, we could change our mind, but that's not what the document's going to say. It's going to say we are doing this because that's what it needs to say. But I do have a question for Jim, and that is, if whatever this says is modified or doesn't get modified, if I were to vote against it, what does that mean at the end of the day? Not the amendment, but the whole motion.
The Alderman Palmer's
No,
motion?
whatever gets modified, the final motion.
The final motion, what that would mean is that you're voting against the final resolution that would authorize the special assessment. So at some point, if the council turns down that resolution, if they want to, this is a project that is required to be done by special assessment under our ordinances, we would have to go back and recraft that resolution. At some point in a final resolution would have to be passed to establish the special assessment.
So if I wanted this to be addressed, and I'm just 1 of 9, wanted to be addressed the following year when we could put in the proper provisions that deal with subsoil and probably look at from the geometry and deal with the proper roads, if I just voted against it, that could happen.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Alderman Stevenson.
I just need clarification on the answer to that question. The motion to amend that's on the floor doesn't do anything to the resolution. It just takes the verbiage about Eagle Crest out. Correct?
That's correct. But
okay, so what? I don't understand that last answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
The main motion would be if you voted against
then as long as I have the floor, Alderperson Bates's question about removing this and putting the language into the resolution, which I think is what Alderperson Palmo was indicating was more consistent with the direction to bid. Is that what your question was? I'd like to ask.
Alderman Bates?
If I may, if this were to pass, I would make an alternate or an extra motion to say I would request beyond the original bid of Nation Trail to get one for both of them.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And I may add on for once, if they can do it, for Eagle Crest alone, just to let you know.
Well, but you wouldn't need to do anything for nature trails because that's included in the resolution, right?
Right.
I'm confused here. The resolution that's on the floor authorizes us to move forward with the nature trails subdivision as it appeared in our budget. The motion to amend simply takes out our option of adding Eagle Crest variable bid.
And I would like to get that.
Yeah, so would I, but I don't know how to vote. I don't know what I'm supposed to do to get that to happen because I'm hearing I can't do this and the resolution's off now. And if I vote no, then I don't get the resolution. So does nature trails go forward? So I'm operating on the assumption that if I want to get a bid for nature trails or Eagle Crest as part of bid package for nature trails, I would want to vote no to
that would be a correct interpretation, in my opinion.
Sorry. Thank you.
All righty. Anyone else? Everyone comfortable? Understand? There is an amendment to the original motion. This amendment was offered by Alderman Paulno, seconded by Alderman Hillstrom. All in favor of Alderman Paulno's motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. Alderman Paulno's motion to amend fails on a vote of 4 ayes, 5 noes. We are on the main motion. Any other comments or discussion? All in favor of the motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion passes 5-4.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Item number D is the regular Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of February 12, 2018. Chairman Paulno.
Item number 1, committee recommends council create the position of Assistant City Attorney at the salary grade N3 and authorize staff to fill the position effective June 1st, 2018, and I would so move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to create the position as stated. Is there any discussion, questions, comments? Director Barber is here if someone has one. Rather been at her daughter's choir concert tonight, but here to listen to us.
Doesn't have to ask anything, I'm fine.
All right. Seeing no discussion, all in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote no. That motion passes 9-0. Director Barber, thanks for coming, and sorry about missing that, but thanks for coming.
Item number 2, committee recommends council approve the 2018 intermunicipal agreement with the City of Appleton for dial-a-ride cost sharing, and I would so move.
Second.
Alderman Paulno moves, seconded by Alderman Erickson, for the 2018 intermunicipal agreement with the City of Appleton for the dial-a-ride cost sharing. Is there any discussion or comments? I had one question today. I couldn't remember. Did the committee decide on the Menasha, or is that something that Jim's going to look into?
It was my understanding that the verbiage was going to be placed in the budget book next time for more clarity moving forward.
That was satisfied everyone. Okay. Then we don't have to ask the question at the budget time, right? Okay, Alderman Stevenson?
Yeah, I think the confusion I heard at budget time was a question about documentation for the billing, invoicing, receiving the payment. Actually, we do send them an invoice and they pay it. Now, yeah, whether we have an agreement or not.
Not the agreement. The actual city of Menasha is not listed anywhere.
Right,
and
correct.
that was confusing as well.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. All in favor of that motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion passes 9-0.
Item number 3, committee recommends council authorize the agreement with Habitat for Humanity for the Greater Fox Cities area to assist with the acquisition in the amount of $30,000 for 2013 South Park Avenue with Community Development Block Grant Property Acquisition and Redevelopment Funds. So move.
Here's a motion by Alderman Paulno, seconded by Alderman Erickson. Any discussion? Questions? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor will vote up.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Alderman Lundrum. I was thinking there was a motion. Sorry. Alderman Lundrum, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I have another question for Director Hayes. I had emailed you last week and asked if it was possible to actually increase the amount of the CDBG funds. I'm just, arbitrary amount for the driveway, like an extra 15,000 because of the dirt driveway. And think that it is a detriment to the neighborhood there with that driveway like that. And I think it would bring up the property values of the neighboring homes also. And I don't think I got an answer on that. So are we able to add on an additional $15,000 to add a driveway on there? And you gave me a price of it, but I don't think I got an answer for, because we got the cost. It wasn't included in their plan to do it, right? But can we designate more dollars, or do we have to send that back, or?
It's, the driveway could be an eligible expense under the block grant if it's done as part of a rehab project. So we wouldn't be able to typically wouldn't be able to fund a driveway on its own, but if it's part of a broader rehab,
like Habitat,
like this situation, it's possible. Obviously, there's the cost of that would diminish the fund by that amount, but it's possible.
So
and allowable under the program.
So they would have to cut back somewhere else on the project to. But I think it's an important thing. Is clearly a dirt driveway. Just, I don't know. I don't see it adding to that neighborhood at all, and I don't see that rehabbing this house is. I mean, obviously it'll help, a little bit, but with a dirt driveway, it still looks rough. So
I'm not going to offer
yep,
my
I understand.
opinion on it. But
no, I understand. So I guess process would. So I can't do that here, right? Without Carol and.
That'd probably be a question for Jim if you wanted to increase. I suspect, but Jim, you'd have to answer that if the council so choose, they could increase the award from the program with the intent that it be applied to the installation of a hard surface driveway.
Is that something better off sending back to committee with that request? And I apologize, I didn't coordinate this sooner, but is that something I can do now as an amendment or
It would be a matter of amending the motion to provide for the increased funds and the source of those funds.
And I guess my question is that allowed in terms of of programming for CDBG funds?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. CDBG funds. And you have clearly enough funds to cover that.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So could I make an amendment to add on an additional $15,000 out of CDBG funds? And
I'd suggest you do an up to
$15,000, yep, for a driveway. And I guess I won't say cement or asphalt. I'll leave that up to them.
Okay, there's a motion by Alderman Lendrum to add $15,000 of CDBG money to this purchase, or to this agreement with Habitat for Humanity. Any other questions? Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. It's 1213 South Park, is that correct? Because I'm looking at it on Google Maps. They have an asphalt driveway. They don't have dirt.
You're not looking at the right one.
Isn't it this one? Oopsie. Green one?
No.
1213.
No, that's not
Yeah,
it.
1213.
Well, Google Maps isn't usually, or map. No, it's white and it's set way back. You can't really depend on Google Maps.
Okay.
The Lutheran Church? Across the street.
It's right across
Oh,
from
is that
Peace
the one on the
Church.
corner?
It's across from the church. I think it's Peace Church.
Driveway. 12 years.
Bingo.
That was my reaction too.
But just
Yeah.
It is gravel.
All right.
yeah.
Alderman Bates?
I'm good, yes.
Okay, thank you. Council President Stevenson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Are we sure that the garage is set way back, almost to the back property line? I don't know, will $15,000 build it? And I'm assuming, because the gravel driveway only goes to the house, and there's grass, at least on Bing maps. It only goes to the house. There's grass in between there and the garage.
I'll be happy to change it to a higher amount.
I just want to know if we're... I don't want to get 3/4 of a driveway if you
Right.
expect it to go to the garage.
Well, we would just do one half of it. We want,
One lane drive?
no, a half of it.
The right
One car.
tire.
It's only
right
one
tire.
car.
2 tires.
I'm sorry. We did ask for them to provide estimates. To be honest, I didn't ask. I assumed that it was going to go to the driveway. And I think the number was between 7,000 and 12,000, depending on the type of whether it was asphalt or concrete. But my assumption would be it would go to the to the garage. I know they are intending to keep the garage and restore the garage as well. So that would be my assumption.
Alderman Polno.
As my historical comments have been well noted in regard to community development block grant dollars, I guess I would state it as we always talk about local municipalities as we have very much of a angst-filled situation when it's an unfunded mandate, but when we have a funded mandate, it seems like our bar of how we utilize taxpayer dollars was way down. I personally don't have a concrete driveway. I got in my vehicle tonight and did a skate all the way up to my vehicle, and so I find this problematic on many levels. I don't think it's a place for government to give somebody a concrete driveway, because I went to that neighborhood and looked at the house. If you look at the house next to it, they have junk piled all along their property line, about 2 feet high. So we're going to have taxpayers, pay for somebody to have a concrete driveway when most places, or a lot of places in the city, don't. Definitely supporting this motion. Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as Director Hayes said, just a hard surface driveway. That doesn't necessarily mean concrete, because I'm noticing several others are just asphalt as well.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I don't know. Concrete has a longer life. I don't know how many years, but it would really be their decision. And as I mentioned, the numbers were somewhere between 7 and 12, depending on the type of surface.
All right. Alderman Hillstrom, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Director Hayes, the Habitat houses that we've built previously, or they've built Habitat houses, I mean, are all those gravel driveways? I mean, do they normally put in a hard surface driveway?
Typically, I don't believe they put a hard surface driveway in with their initial construction, similarly to what, they don't build garages. I think the hope is, and in some cases it certainly has occurred after the owner has moved in, they have built garages and have paved driveways, but I think initially they are constructed without pavement. I think Habitat will tell you that they're in the business of providing habitat for humans and not for cars. It's kind of their standard line.
Well, so their purpose is to build as many Habitat houses as they can and not necessarily have paved driveways, because that just drives up the price. I mean, is that a fair statement?
I believe so, and I remember the houses are actually sold to the occupant. So I believe their rationale is it's more affordable for that individual. In this case, I don't know that per the motion that it affects the bottom line. In essence, if the program is funding the driveway, it would not drive up the cost for the occupant or the owner. But your analysis is accurate.
Thank you.
I was recently at the dedication of the house on Green, off of Cecil Street, behind all the Erica's Green Meadow. That was dedication. a month ago or so, and they have a gravel driveway. That's just one that I can think of, and I have a comment on this, but I will first go to Alderman Boyette.
Thank you. So I'm not very familiar with how this works with Habitat, but my assumption is that the people end up purchasing the home from the organization at a lower rate of interest or whatever. They get a special deal and they put sweat equity in and get credits and that sort of thing, correct?
Yeah, I think it's primarily sweat equity is where they come in. Their sweat equity in essence becomes the equity in the home, and then they would still have a loan and a mortgage.
So by us increasing the amount that we help with, how does that factor in to the purchase price and all that?
I don't think it would in this case. We're familiar with Habitat typically building a house. This is a restoration of an existing home. So and again, it would be one thing if we were saying the driveway is going to cost $10,000 and we're going to fund $5,000. Then obviously it drives up the cost. But if the program is going to fund the 100% of the cost of the improvement, I don't see where that's going to drive the cost for the future occupant and owner of the home. They may have a home with a better value, but it probably doesn't drive up their cost.
And I'm also thinking these are people that can't afford to purchase a home in the traditional market, so that's why they go this route. So what are the odds of them affording a driveway after getting in and getting this loan going and et cetera? It may be an extended amount of time before an actual hard service driveway goes in there.
That's probably a safe assumption. Obviously, they're going to have priorities in terms of where they expend their additional dollars. And as was mentioned, the Habitat homes that are built new typically are built without a garage and without a driveway, or at least a paved driveway. In some cases, they have added garages and driveways, so it would probably depend on individual circumstances.
Thanks.
And Alderman Coons.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry to extend this. I would consider a future ordinance at some point that maybe all roads, all driveways need to be paved or something like that, although I've seen some nice driveways designed to be pervious, to take in the water and to fit into the natural landscape and all those other kind of things too. So even that would be a tough call. But for this in particular, I don't know, unless the city's ready to give every Habitat home $10,000 for a driveway, I'm not quite sure that this works. So I'd be voting against this amendment.
Alderman Lindrum?
Thank you, Mayor. If this amendment doesn't pass, I won't be voting for the original motion, and I'll just let the market speak, and whoever wants to, buy it, I guess we could take that risk, that a rehabber will come in and make it a really nice place to live for somebody. But this is why I have been objecting this whole time about these new builds for Habitat, is no garages, gravel driveways. They stick out like a sore thumb. I have always asked them and us to work with them on rehabbing existing homes and not doing the rebuild. So that argument doesn't really fly with me. So thank you.
And Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm concerned about putting money in a driveway when taking it from CDBG grant money, in the sense that if in the future we can't afford one because we're $10,000 short or whatever, we won't be able to do it. So putting it in a new house for a new person seems to be the best way to do it. Let the driveways handle themselves.
Anyone else? I'll keep my comment short here. I have some trepidation of even speaking on this, but I somewhat agree with Alderman Paulno. When it's not our money, we do things differently in that, and I understand all the discussion, and I pretty much appreciate the fact that they're looking at rehabbing houses instead of building new. So I think that's a good direction for this group to go. I just worry about, and you can talk precedent all day and all that, but I do worry about this. There are gravel driveways all over this city, you know, and Alderman Lundrum, I totally see where you're coming from, but boy, the people on Nature Trail, we're going to make them rip up their driveway and put in a new one as part of this project. The aprons, at least, not the driveway. Sorry, the aprons. So, and they're paying it all on their nickel. So, this is probably something that may be a good idea, but and that's a long driveway too. When I drove over there, that thing is set way back. So, I don't have heartburn over this, but I think maybe it's the motion is hopefully they can make this a much nicer property and not pay for the driveway. So that's just me. Anyone else? Last discussion? If not, there is a amendment to the motion offered by Alderman Lundrum, seconded by Alderman Boyette, to add an additional up to $15,000 for them to put in a driveway. Correct? All in favor of Alderman Lundrum's motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion passes. 1 aye, 8 noes. Fails. That motion fails. 1 aye, 8 noes. Sorry. That brings us back to the original motion, which is to authorize the agreement with Habitat for Humanity to assist with the acquisition in the amount of $30,000 for 1213 South Park using Community Development Block Grant Property Acquisition and Redevelopment Funds. Any discussion? Alderman Paulno.
I just want to say I think Habitat for Humanity as a group is a phenomenal group. I've known people personally who have benefited from that program, so I'm not adverse to that program. I just don't think government money should be expended for rehabilitation just because for homes. I mean, myself personally, last year I bought 2 rental properties that were seedy to say the least. I'm doing sweat equity myself. I've been working 8 hours during the day and then 4 hours at night, rehabbing them and spending on contractors, Winneconne, used to be the bus, and then on Plummer. So I just want to say for landlords in general, it does happen in the private sector all the time. It doesn't, tax dollars doesn't go for this kind of thing to happen. So that's why I'll be opposing this because of the tax dollar component. Thank you.
Alderman Coons.
Sorry, I had a quick comment. The interesting thing about block grants, when we talk about federal money and all those other kind of things, but that is, you know, in a sense, we get penalized if we don't spend the money fast enough and enough in a year. That's the federal government. I mean, not only do they give us that money, but they're requiring that we spend it in a timely manner. And it's difficult because they have a million hoops you got to get through. So this year in particular, I've really kind of taken a different look and usually I'd be more critical about every little piece, but I understand it's difficult to get all the pieces in place so we continue to have that money available to help our residents when they need it.
Anyone else? Being no one else, all in favor of the motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion passes 6-3.
Item number 4, committee recommends council authorize captioning of our recorded meetings with REV Rev and to change the expense, or charge the expense against council budget item other services televised meetings, account number 010-0101-700-023. And I would so move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Can we get the account number again?
No.
Please.
It's on the tape.
Finance question.
I think that here you go. Wasn't that account number out of the police department?
I think the closed captioning software, hopefully they'll be able to catch something like that.
Okay, Alderman Bates.
Thank you, Mayor. I was not able to make that meeting. I was wondering what sort of test did they do on this this particular option as opposed to the one previously that didn't work very well.
They did run a full meeting from, I believe it was the September 20th meeting through, whereas in YouTube, they say that the error rate is about 65%. This was quite a bit better. I don't know if I could actually give it, maybe about a third of it had some typos, errors, but it improves over time because it learns the lingo and what's going on. So over time it'll improve. But there were some errors, but it wasn't significant.
Did you run it the same meeting that you had run the previous one, just to be able to see if certain names that I know were incorrect, were those corrected or no?
The Rev was able to get the names correct the first time.
Thank you.
And is there a contract time on?
No, there's no contract. We just have an account set up. We will have an account set up with them, and then as we feed the recordings to them, we get billed for what we.
So if we didn't like the quality or something,
we can move
we're
on.
not bound for a year, 2 years, or something. So
That's
we
correct.
could look at something else or other options. Okay, Alderman Paulno.
I was going to dovetail on it. There was also a discussion committee to take a 50,000-foot view and kind of look at how we do things at the council for televised, how it all fits in together, to kind of reassess it, because this, correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Gillespie, this has kind of been set up for quite a number of years how we're doing it, and we haven't really looked at it closely with the new technologies, the new things available. So there was a request to bring this to committee for the summation of how we do things and potential questions of maybe how we could do things better or differently.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Hillstrom.
Mayor, do I remember right that our meetings won't be televised at the same day at the same time that they currently are?
It's possible. I have not confirmed with Professor France at UW Fox what time Green Bay is branding us on the channel. It may be the same day. I know that Neenah has decided not to go with the Rev alternative because they have a lot more televising, so they're looking at some of the other alternatives, and so that time on Thursday is going to be more wide open. But I haven't gotten the final determination of when it will be put back on. As soon as I do, I'll get an email out to the council.
Okay, thank you.
Clerk Sturgeon.
It may stay at that Thursday time slot, but it would be the previous week's meeting because they can't get the closed captioning done from Wednesday night to Thursday night.
Actually, the current.
Which is what they do now. They would play tonight's meeting tomorrow. With the closed captioning, they wouldn't be able to do that.
No, actually, the tonight's meeting is broadcast.
Okay, it used to be the day after.
Yeah, it was at one time.
Okay. But could we ask for Monday night? If they needed a couple more days, we have the ability to ask, that it be on Monday night or something. I mean, we went on a Friday night or something, but we ask that. I think, Bill's correct. I think we need to look further. This is kind of a stopgap measure. Neenah, they have these committee of the whole meetings all the time, and so they'd have to. Their bill would be $14,000 because they would have to do all of them. So they're looking at other options, and I think we'll look at other options too. But for now, it's kind of a stopgap and see how it goes. Alderman Lundrum.
Thank you. If this passes tonight, 2 questions. Would this meeting be then closed captioned? Tonight's meeting?
Yes.
So it'll start right away.
Assuming that we've been assigned a slot at the channel, and I'll find that out tomorrow.
Okay, and then can you let us know when this starts, the closed
Yes.
captioning? Okay, And then I think we all would be very interested to hear what Menasha's alternatives are. I mean, you said that they're exploring alternatives. So
YouTube.
Okay. Oh, is that the only? You said alternatives. Is that the only choice?
My understanding is that YouTube was the alternative that they've chosen.
I talked to Don.
And other internet.
That's
other
right.
internet sites.
Through their website.
Okay, so a couple internet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor of the motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine, please. That motion passes 9-0.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reports of special committees. There was no Plan Commission meeting. Board of Public Works meeting of February 16th, 2018. That will be Alderman Hillstrom.
Yes, thank you. The board recommends council award contract 1-18 sewer and water main construction and street construction on Andrew Avenue, Richard Avenue, Geiger Street, and Whiting Court to David Tenner Corporation, 2759 Dewey Decker Drive, Green Bay for $1,199,412.98, and direct staff to provide costs to use concrete on Geiger Street prior to the next week meeting next week, which we talked about earlier, and I would so move.
Second.
There's a motion by Alderman Hillstrom, seconded by Alderman Polno. Is there any discussion? And just to reiterate, we did have, 12 bids, Jerry? 12 bids, I believe?
Yeah, we had 12 bids.
12 bids. We had some bidders were out of the area, some of the subcontractors, including the subcontractor the contractor that won the bid, the subcontractors from out of the area.
The paving subcontractor for the low bid is from out of the area.
So we had a lot of interest in these bids, so that's a good thing, but we did bid early. Alderman Kunz.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a clarification, the whole idea of using concrete, we already addressed that, and so it's a non-issue on this motion. The concrete,
That's correct.
Thank you. To do it again would probably be diligent. Dilly. So the motion would be everything except the indirect staff, correct?
Correct.
We'll just take that off. Is that all right? Friendly amendment? I'm sorry.
we already directed staff and they already did it. We already,
Yeah.
so it
Okay.
becomes a non-issue that.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. All in favor of that motion will vote aye. All opposed will vote no using the roll call machine. That motion passes 9-0.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Item number C is Community Development Authority update. Director Hayes.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick things. We have a verbal offer. City Attorney's Office is drafting the paperwork to acquire an additional home in the Main Street neighborhood. So that will be going to CDA here in the very near future and ultimately will come to this group for approval. We have been meeting and continue again with cooperation with City Attorney's Office and certainly with Jerry and the Public Works Department on trying to move the ball forward on Neenah Foundry site as a possible stormwater pond. We actually met this morning with representatives of a local company that actually would see some additional benefit from that pond as it relates to future expansion plans, more than just the traditional stormwater treatment. So we'll see where that goes, but hopefully we will see that move forward here in the very near future. And ultimately, again, something that will end up in front of this group. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Any comments or questions? See none. Okay. Item number D is a report from the Library Board. Alderman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Neenah Library Board met today at 4 o'clock. They have some good news to report. The customer count at the Neenah Library has increased to 24,522 versus $23,483 from the same time last year. Programming has increased 50% since last year to date, and that increase in customer count is 33.35% in customers. So a lot of people are visiting our library and attending the programs. I encourage everybody to check out the Neenah Public Library website for the wonderful programs that are available. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. I think I sent to the council, there was a organization that has ranked the Neenah Library the fourth best
That's
library
correct.
in the state of Wisconsin.
That is correct. Although I do think it should be number one.
So you're challenging the number
I'm going to
four.
challenge that.
Because that's just out of the bronze.
Right.
Fourth, so I've been watching that every night. So, okay, Director Hayes, can we go back to one more item on CDA?
Yeah, it's not necessarily CDA. Just council might have some interest. I noticed today that the communications antenna adjacent to Walgreens on South Commercial is now up. So if you have an opportunity, you may want to take a gander. You may want to check how many bars you have now, but.
Okay. There are no petitions. Any council directives anyone like to talk about? Under unfinished business, I would just like to, under unfinished business, I would like to give council a quick update. And someone wants to ask a question, Jerry Kaiser. With regards to the sanitary sewer rate study, the rate calculation spreadsheet has been received. It's now currently being reviewed by staff. They are meeting with the consultant next Wednesday to review the spreadsheet and the rate recommendations. Jerry and I talked today. We are targeting a 20 to 30 minute discussion presentation by the consultant before council on March 7th. I know, Bill, you've been asking for this, so I'll try and give you a specific here. Also, with regards to the refuse recycling collection discussion, Barry has a memo that will be distributed to the council by the end of this week or by Monday. In addition to the memo, he'll distribute the RFPs, and all the responses will be provided to the council. We are looking to have the committee of the whole for the garbage and refuse recycling collection on either March 12th or March 13th. That's a Monday or a Tuesday. Those are committee meeting nights. I'm going to discuss this with the council president, which night would be preferred. If any of you cannot make either one of those nights, maybe you should let me know tomorrow or something in an email, and then we'll try and work around you. I will just tell you that we're going to get you the information so you have plenty of time to review it, because I will say this, it's never as easy as you think it is. And the more layers we pulled back on this, the more questions we had, the more times we had to go back out to the bidders, the people who we were getting proposals from. We had to, as you look at how doing things under different scenarios, that would impact not just the refuse collection component of Public Works, but it would also have impacts on like the motor pool and on other things. So, we apologize, but we want to do this right, and we're not going to hurry it. There's no there's no deadline. We said we have a target date in the budget of July, but if we start it a little later, that would be, in my opinion, perfectly fine. We just want to try and get as much information so that you can make a decision at the time that we're ready. So those are two things under unfinished business that I have, and then I'll have a couple of other quick little things. Alderman Paulno, you have some other things.
I was going to ask about the sanitary rate study. So,
well, I'm like Karnak. I predicted that. All right, thank you. No, I just wanted to get that information. I figured you were curious on that, so I appreciate that. And then Just a quick update. Oh, go ahead, Alderman Bates, go ahead.
I was going to ask how the presentation was to unveil Lincoln again.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That was Monday. We unveiled the replaced Abe Lincoln in his proper spot. We had a good little turnout of people on a cold, windy day. The school district decided to let the kids out at noon, so we had 25 children from Roosevelt who then were not able to participate, who were all prepared with their Roosevelt quotes and that, but they didn't get to. But we did get them the Roosevelt cookies, as I understand, at a later date. So we had
Lincoln.
Did I say Roosevelt? Abe Lincoln. Abe Lincoln cookies.
Mr. Roosevelt.
Whoa.
So we were giving those away.
We did get them the Lincoln cookies. Abe Lincoln himself made an appearance all throughout the downtown in the form of James Merton, and who did a great job. He was played the part very well, and even had a real beard styled in the Abe Lincoln format. So it was pretty fun, and we had a TV station, and we had a lot of comments on Facebook, a lot of people driving by. So Abe is back in his spot, and people are, from what I understand, someone already has a hat and gloves on him, so he's shielding them from the cold. So thank you for asking. And then, so that's under unfinished business, and then we'll go to Alderman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give you an update from the Neenah Arts Council. Can I do that at this time?
We can do that under new business, so just wait 1 second.
Thought we were there.
We'll do it under new business. So anything else under unfinished business? And we are going to add that probably as a monthly update from you with regards to that. So in the future.
Which meeting would you like that report from? Because your meeting is not set either the beginning or the end of the month. So which meeting would be better to put the Arts Council
Probably the
report on?
second meeting.
Second meeting? Okay.
Okay, good. So under new business then, Alderman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Neenah Arts Council is promoting Youth Art Month for the month of March. There are going to be 9 exhibits throughout the community featuring youth art, and they will be at Ascension, the new office building on Main Street, the Associated Bank building downtown, City Hall, the Neenah Library, Best Western Premier Bridgewood, Kurt Stein School of Music, Valley Academy of the Arts, Community First Credit Union, and the Mahler Park Highlands. So if you want to stop into any of those locations during the month of March, you can view student artwork. The Neenah Police Department has volunteered to help set up and take down the exhibits. And there will be a Bergstrom Mahler Museum of Glass, Fox Valley Area Art High School Glass Exhibition, March 3rd through the 31st. On March 3rd, there will be awards presented to the high school students that win that competition. And Valley Academy of Arts is having an open house on March 24th from 10 to 3. So we're celebrating youth art during the month of March.
Thank you very much. There will be a display here in this building
That's
too,
correct.
Right. Thank you. Anyone else have any new business? Or I just give a couple quick things. With regards to the Kimberly-Clark discussions, those are ongoing. There was a hearing in Madison on Tuesday morning on a bill. Kimberly-Clark has now sent me a letter along with the governor. I sent to the governor and it was passed on to me. It was both of us that stated that Kimberly-Clark is appreciative of the efforts. They are going to look at it, and they are in discussions with the labor unions. The exhibition center, there was a meeting of the 9 member communities held here at the City Hall called by me. We discussed the agreement, and we have asked Mayor Hanna to make a few adjustments to the borrowing package, and I expect a decision from him very quickly. They are hoping to have this done by March 7th, but as time gets closer, and I know this council is going to want to have a full explanation of what's in there with regards to the pledge and security agreement, but when all the communities get together and are singing out of the similar hymn, we will, bring this forward. As soon as we hear from Mayor Hanna, we'll bring it to you, okay? If anyone's doing vacations, I would ask, let us know so that in case something comes up that we can plan, or I know, or Joni knows if you're going to be gone with vacations coming up. The Fox Cities Chamber, I was at meeting this morning. Chamber is asking if any of you have attended like Menashe's Bazaar after dark, or Appleton or Kaukauna. They would like to hold one in Neenah late summer. So that's kind of cool. If you went to any of those were well-attended events and showcased their community, and it's kind of a fun thing. I just want to make you aware, we are monitoring a situation with the boilers in this building. Both boilers went down the other day, and we had no heat in this building. We were able to get one of the boilers up and running. The other boiler, it will be a substantial fix. They are probably at the end of their life cycle, but we need heat in here for certain reasons. And so we are monitoring that, and so you may be asked to do something, but we do have the one up and running, but that's probably will need to be addressed this year. So there may have to be change. So I'll be talking to Todd about that and having some discussion with Jerry also. Lastly, and I don't think we're there yet, and I haven't even told Jerry this, but there's been some discussions, just so you know. We Energies is going to be asking for a lot of easements around the community to continue with their. Pardon? Yeah. So they're going to be asking for some easements throughout the city, and those are being done and granted. They are having some difficulty with the school district. Coolidge School, they want to go through the back property line. The school district has said no, and is asking for $100,000 for their easement. And
Nice.
so what that's going to mean is that there's going to be a lot more power poles going up in that neighborhood. And so if you get calls, direct them to the school district. And so I think I've had discussions with the school district, and I don't get it, but I think it's not being, it's not helping this community and the image of this community, but if anyone has any insight with the school district and getting those done, because I think alleviating as many power lines and power poles as we can is a good thing for this community, in my opinion. And then we are also taking ownership of the Bell Street electrical substation happening, correct? And so those are just some of the updates, okay? So I'll give you them. Anyone else have anything for the good of the order?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That's order. We are adjourned. Let's see, 120.
Broadcasts of the City of Neenah Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin Fox Valley. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents via the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues or about these broadcasts by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or by completing the electronic feedback form on the city website, www.neenahgov.org. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.